Hello and welcome back to Toys Equals Midlife Crisis Squared, the channel that doesn't really know what this channel is about. Anyway, so there's this ongoing debate that I've seen of Valaverse versus Hasbro in terms of Sergeant Slaughter and which one's better. Well, the problem with better is that it's subjective to whoever the audience is. You know, if you've got nothing but Valaverse figures, then yeah, of course, the Valaverse Sergeant Slaughter is going to be better. And if you've got nothing but classified figures, well then the Hasbro version is most definitely going to be better because they fit, made by the same people, designed by the same people. In fact, the guy who created Valaverse worked for Hasbro and did many a number of successful figures for them. So he has the same experience. So you might also notice that the Valaverse figures share pretty much the same figure design, the same sort of hinges, the same sort of ball joints. It's almost as if they're universal in that regard. So in that respect, they're very similar. In my opinion, it's all going to depend on what you want the figure for. Is it just a shelf warmer? Is it going to just sit there and look pretty? Or are you doing photography? Or are you, doing animation? Are you doing play sets? Is this for a plaything? It doesn't matter. Whatever your application of the Sarge is the one that's best. That's real. That's the honest truth. And so what I'm going to show for you is this. So here I have both the Valaverse figure. Let's set Hasbro aside. So let's take a gander at the two versions of Valaverse. Now, you might notice that mine look a little bit different. And that is because I did the great torso swap. I swapped torsos and swapped hats. And the reason for that was because I wanted a Sergeant Slaughter that I wanted a Sergeant Slaughter that closely represented the figure I had when I was much younger. And this is that one. In fact, I went ahead and painted the sunglasses silver so that they absolutely matched completely. And I also painted the wristbands, which also were like the ones on the figure. I could have swapped the boots, but if you swap the boots, then he becomes more like the Hasbro Sarge, and that was not really a comparison I particularly wanted. I just wanted the original toy. So I kept the boots the way they were because that's the way the original toy was. I also decorated their hats with the chevron. And, this one I didn't do as good a job on. This one I like a little bit better. Be that as it may, this Sarge is just kind of a decorative shelf. I'm never going to get rid of him. He is what he is. But let me tell you the one thing that I absolutely can't stand about the Valaverse that I like about the Hasbro. Watch this. Oh. Yeah, we're going to be tearing this up. No doubt ski. How loose the hat and glasses are. Like right now I've got it set pretty tight. Oh, snap. Boy, he's on there pretty good. Woo-hoo. The original release, or the version 1 release, somehow the hat fits a little tighter that you switch it. I mean, I can knock him over and those things they stay put. But the version 2, man, you breathe on him wrong and everything comes crashing down. And it's a real pain in the butt to try to get him put back together. But, you know what? Here on this channel, we're going to just do the whole Humpty Dumpty thing, and we're going to put him back together. Just you wait. Movie magic. Now, back to where we were. No, not quite. So let's slate it up. Put you in the book ground. Let's put you back in the forefront. Okay. All right. And well, there we have it. He's back. Movie magic. Okay, now I'm going to show you what it is about this Sergeant Slaughter that doesn't work for me and what I choose to do. And I do toy photography, or that's what I'm going to do. That and collecting the figures I lost as a kid. So this Sergeant Slaughter, I love the details, I love the realism, I love the proportions. I think he works well as a figure. He's extremely stiff, easily posable, and there are poses that I can do with him that you can't do with the Hasbro Sarge, and I'll get into that too. But here's largely what doesn't work for me. So I do want him to be the drill sergeant for G.I. Joe. And well, I'd certainly like to see how intimidating the Sarge is at trying to get gung-ho to follow instructions. I mean, he loses the intimidation factor for me. It's kind of like, boy, when I tell you to jump, you say how high. And then suddenly Roadblock is like, wait a minute, what did you say? What did you ask him to do? You know, and then it's suddenly like, oh my gosh, you know, maybe I'll just have a second thought there. So in that regard, it doesn't work for me. At least against these figures. These figures just tower over him. They do. They're very intimidating next to him. And also, if you're going to go with enemies, let's say you want Sergeant Slaughter to have a tangle with Crocmaster. Well, yeah, okay, you can try to make it work, but it just looks like Crocmaster will, in fact, overpower him at some point. Now, where it does sort of work, I suppose, is you're going to have him yell at like Flint. I don't like the posture. You change you sit up straight, chin out. Ugh. You know, whatever. I think it works in that regard. I tell you what. Especially the whole kind of like, I don't like ninjas with guns. How many times do I have to tell you? Just kidding. So, again, I have no issues with this Sarge, but I do have issues where it concerns trying to intimidate the Joes as a drill instructor. Now, conversely, the larger-than-life Hasbro version, just beefier. He fits with these characters a little bit more, and he could very easily intimidate them. Like, poor Kamakura. When I call you throw down, that means I throw you down. So, you put him up against, Roadblock. Roadblock is still about as tall, if not a little taller, but it still works a little bit better in terms of, him being able to instruct or, get him into position. Yeah, right. That's it. I get people into position. No, you don't. You get them trained up. Get them trained up. So anyway, I want to show you the pose that I do like the Valaverse Sarge for. I'm going to get him into that particular pose, and you'll understand what it is that's cool about it. That this one it doesn't do as good of a job. All right, look. So here's the pose that I kind of like. This super intimidating Sarge with this chin jutting forward and arm posting out, and he's kind of just leaning into it. In fact, I think I can even make him lean even more and stand him up, and then just bounce him on the other character. It's kind of like super intimidation. It's like, I told you to get it together, bro. Urgh. So that's a very difficult position to get the other Sargent. As you can see, I've got his neck like totally pushed out, even though the neck doesn't even move. But you try to get that pose with this one, and it doesn't have that same push to me. It doesn't have that jutting out effect, and it can never really get it to. He can't move his head far enough out from his neck to really jut out. So it doesn't have that imposing factor, so to speak. And you can try to make it work. I mean, I suppose in a way that it does, but that's largely one thing that I will give the Valaverse figure points on, is it's just a slight more posable, because he's got more, even though that neck is fixed, he's got more range in his head. He can do a lot more. He could even like, what did you say to me? So he can do a lot more expressive looks. This one, not so much. I mean, he can't really jut his head back as much, in my opinion, of course. But still, he's larger than life, absolutely beefy, and that's the reason why I'll give, for my collection and for what I'm going to be doing, this is a Sarge that I particularly like. So here we go. This is one of the tassels I really like, is having Sergeant Slaughter tangle with Crocmaster. Or how about one of wrestling's famous kind of sort of moves of getting him in a chokehold and get him on the top rung. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. But again, I just want to go back to this, that the Valaverse character version is far more expressive. You can get a lot more interesting kind of attitude with him that it's a little more difficult to get than the Valaverse Sarge. But again, the only real complaint, he's a little stiffer, but he's still got a bit more articulation in my opinion. And this is actually something interesting you don't see too many people talk about. The pointing finger on the Valaverse version pivots up and down, right? So you can kind of get this kind of interesting pointiness to it. But the Sargent Slaughter version in Hasbro is up and down instead of kind of to the side. So he can kind of just do that. You can get that kind of position going down. If he can actually stand up. Of course he can't, because, you know, gravity. Gravity works. But he can't really do that. He can't bend it down like that. He can only just bend it either up or down. So that makes it a little different. A little different. It's a little different. Oh my gosh. There is one more thing I want to point out between these two Sarges, and it is, again, and I do apologize for the Valaverse fans, but this is something that irks me quite a bit, is that with the glasses don't necessarily sit right, and you could see the eyes through the side of the glasses, and it kind of takes you out of the illusion. But if you look at the Hasbro Sargent Slaughter, it's kind of curved enough in a way and has a little bit of an edge to it hides the eyes from the side. So you get a much better profile again, and this is mostly for photography. So when I'm going to be doing photo shoots, I'm going to prefer this over this. And I even thought about doing this kind of funny scenario where like Dr. Mindbender zaps him as kind of a ray to age him up, like oh no, what have you done? Kind of sad in a way that Dr. Mindbender's more buff than Valaverse Sargent Slaughter. I know, not very much of a fair comparison, but again, it's just to point out that the Valaverse Sargent Slaughter is grounded in more realism, so he fits into that kind of category, but not in the larger-than-life fantasy category that Classified is more interested in portraying. So in the end, can't we all just get along with both of them together, living seamlessly forever and ever? Well, thanks for sticking around this long and watching all the way to the end of the video. I will post a couple of photos. See you next time. And once again, just for effect, I absolutely can't stand this. Oh my God, I am not making my point.